Esto dice el Señor: en su aflicción mi pueblo me buscará y se dirán unos a otros: vengan, volvamos al Señor. Él nos ha desgarrado y Él nos curará. Él nos ha herido y Él nos vendará. En 2 días nos devolverá la vida y al tercero nos levantará y viviremos en su presencia. Esforcémonos por conocer al Señor, tan cierta como la aurora es su aparición, y su juicio surge como la luz. Bajará sobre nosotros como lluvia temprana, como lluvia de primavera que empapa la tierra. ¿Qué voy a hacer contigo, Efraín? ¿Qué voy a hacer contigo, Judá? Su amor es nube mañanera, es rocío matinal que se evapora. Por eso los de que he azotado por medio de los profetas, y les he dado muerte con mis palabras, porque yo quiero misericordia y no sacrificios, conocimiento de Dios más que holocaustos. Palabra de Dios.
Czytanie z listu świętego Pawła apostoła do Tymoteusza. Ukochany, przyjmij za normę zdrowe słowa, które ode mnie usłyszałeś, w wierze i miłości, która jest w Chrystusie Jezusie. Strzeż tego depozytu z pomocą Ducha Świętego, który w Tobie mieszka. Moje dziecko, bądź mocny w łasce, która jest w Chrystusie Jezusie. I to, co usłyszałeś ode mnie przez wielu świadków, powiesz wiernym ludziom, którzy będą w stanie nauczać również innych. Weź udział w trudach, jak dobry żołnierz Jezusa Chrystusa. Oto Słowo Boże.
Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus went around to all the towns and villages, teaching in their synagogues, proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, and curing every disease and illness. At the sight of the crowds, his heart was moved with pity for them, because they were troubled and abandoned, like sheep without a shepherd. Then he said to his disciples, "The harvest is abundant, but the laborers are few. So ask the master of the harvest to send out laborers for his harvest." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
It is a very special time to celebrate the feast of a parish church, because it is a special time for the faith community. We celebrate not only the patron saint of a parish, but we celebrate the spirit that the community, the faithful, all of you here present this evening, and those who are not here, we celebrate the spirit that you adopt from this great saint, Saint Turibius of Duewekee. What we celebrate this evening is a tattoo. I'm not going to ask how many of you have a tattoo. Yeah? I'm sure some do. But we celebrate a spiritual tattoo, the imprint of Saint Turibius. But how many times do we think about this great person, this great saint? One of the first, I believe he was the first of the great saints of the Americas. You have a tattoo, a spiritual tattoo of the spirit of Saint Turibius. But what is that spirit? And as I reflected about this, and read a little bit about his history, I thought, the tattoo that you people are celebrating tonight, which no other parish has, is to demonstrate to others how much one person can make a difference in the world. It takes one person. And in a special way, you are called upon to demonstrate, to amplify that commitment that one person can make a difference. You can make a difference in this world. And because of that, there's no reason to despair. There's much hope, because there are many of you here in the congregation, many of you who are in the community who are not able to be here to celebrate, but they are here in spirit, and we celebrate with them. And that spirit, that spiritual tattoo, you have that to contribute to the build-up of the local church of Chicago. In the same way that other parishes nearby, like Our Lady Star of the Sea, they have a tattoo of Our Lady. Saint Rita has a tattoo of Saint Rita. Saint Gall's has a tattoo of Saint Gall. Saint Gall, the missionary. Saint Rita, the reconciler. Our Lady Star of the Sea points to hope. And so every community has a distinction about it. And that is what we are celebrating tonight. And I think the gospel that was read this evening summarizes up your mission from Matthew 9. And it's a very short description of Jesus' activity that's worthwhile, that I think every parishioner should type out and put it on his or her room, on a wall someplace near the Bible, or wherever you might have a statue or a candle, to remind you of your particular mission, your tattoo. Just as we all have received the tattoo of baptism, as St. Paul reminds us. And he uses that word. And so it's not a foreign concept for us to reflect on. And let's break open a little bit. What is this mission that the parishioners of St. Turibius point to and want to contribute to the wider Church of Chicago for the transformation of the world? Because the mission is always to the world. It's not to ourselves. It's not to our personal salvation. It's for the salvation of the world. That is your mission. That is our mission. In the Gospel of Matthew, we hear about Jesus traveling. He's preaching. He's teaching. He's healing. He's using his time. He's not lazy. He's not squandering time. He's not just being a loaf. He's working. He's using his time to teach, heal, and preach, to be with the disciples, to be with the people, to break bread, to eat fish. The crowds followed him because he inspired them. They saw something within Jesus. And at the same time, Jesus felt compassion for them. As he says, they're like sheep without a shepherd. They are the people on the periphery that we are reminded by Pope Francis that we have to go out to. Who are the people not here? Who are the people on the fringe? Who are the people who feel as though they have no voice? Who are the people who feel neglected and forgotten in our society? They are the object of our mission. Jesus felt compassion for them. He suffered because he felt their suffering. They were troubled and abandoned, and Jesus wanted to bring them into the fold, into a community where everyone is welcome, just as the entrance song that we sang this evening. And Jesus says to the disciples, whom all of us are, the harvest is abundant. There are many people out there waiting for an invitation, waiting for someone to listen to them. Not to judge them, but to listen to them. People of St. Turibius are people who break the boundaries. They break down the walls because they see everyone as a shining mystery of God's presence. This gospel from Matthew parallels the life of St. Turibius in a curious way. St. Turibius was a preacher, he was a teacher, and a healer. He too had compassion for the poor and the abandoned. His spirit, again, the tattoo that is placed on us is that one person can make a difference. And he challenges us to ask the question, how do we use our time? Because by the way that we use our time, it tells us how we can make a difference in the world. How do we use our time to make that difference is the challenge. St. Turibius is quoted as saying, "Time is not our own. We will have to give a strict account of it when we come before the Lord." Time is not our own. Time is a gift. It's been given to us to do something with it. That too is a challenge. Turibius made a difference. I think he was a workaholic from reading his biography. I also think he was a troublemaker. He was a creative person who took initiatives. For that reason, he was a threat to the established order. And as you know about his biography, he was a layman. He was a teacher of the law. Yeah. He taught legal matters in Spain. And for some mysterious reason, he was nominated as Archbishop of Lima, Peru. And he was a layman. And he protested. He says, I don't want to be a bishop. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lay person. I love being a lay person. I don't want to be clergy. And so after much protesting, he acquiesced. They grabbed him. They ordained him one day as priest. They consecrated him as bishop. And they put him on a boat to go far away. That tells me that he was a troublemaker. If you want to get rid of somebody in the church, make them a bishop and send them to Peru. You have 3 troublemakers in this parish. Father Jack, Father Bill, and Father Bob, who is visiting. We were sent to Peru because we were troublemakers. Troublemakers in the spirit. That's what we're called to do. Where we're supposed to agitate. Yeah? Kind of wake people up. You know? That's what Pope Francis said to the youth at World Youth Day a couple years ago in Panama. He said to the youth, create havoc in the church. Raise all kinds of questions. Challenge people. Just don't sit around on your digital devices playing games. Get out there. Create chaos, I think was the word that Pope Francis used. So the people of St. Turibius, you're troublemakers. You create chaos. And the best way to create chaos is ask questions. And to ask the question is a birthright that we all have. The answer isn't so important. It's the questioning that we ask to help people get deeper, to move from a superficial life as a Christian, a superficial Christian, to an authentic, committed Christian. This is the problem that Turibius had in Peru. He had to deal with the large Spanish Catholic population, of which most of them were Catholic in name only. The assignment that St. Turibius had was challenging. Okay? And I imagine he was a man of deep prayer also, because he acquiesced after protesting. Yeah, it's okay to protest before bishops and before God. But I think he was a deep man of prayer who trusted the Spirit. And as he arrived in Peru, the first challenge was the immense territory that he had to deal with. Father Bill and I worked in that territory, in the deserts, the mountains, and the jungles. Peru is a very diverse region. They didn't have roads back then. They didn't have many roads when Father Bill and I were there either. We either backpacked or we rode mules. A lot of times we preferred to ride a mule, right? or to walk, rather. In Peru, at the time of St. Turibius' arrival, the church was lax and it was corrupt. Nothing new, right? The Spaniards were Catholic in name only. They had their devotions. There were devotions to gold and to silver. The Indian population, the native Peruvians, were exploited and treated with contempt. In modern society, Peruvian society, that's still true today. The person on the low end of the totem pole, as it were, is the Andean Indian. Turibius embraced the challenges. He methodically responded to them one by one over the course of 25 years. He started to make regular pastoral visits to the parishes. He cleaned up abuses among the clergy, and he established the first seminary in South America. He denounced the social sins present at that time. He gave charity to the poor and defended the Indian communities. He studied their languages, like Aymara and Quechua, in order to preach the gospel. In the seminaries today, we have a hard time getting people to learn Spanish and Polish. There should be a strong effort to learn these languages. Now you imagine that could be a prophetic stance of the community of St. Turibius on the next visit of your bishop. I say, but what are you doing to encourage seminarians to learn languages? Spanish, Polish, Vietnamese, Chinese, in order to preach the gospel. It would be a challenge to the bishop. And they too need to be challenged. St. Turibius was determined to show a more authentic side of Christianity rather than a distortion of Christianity. All too often what I hear in interreligious dialogue is that people criticize Christianity, and when they see a distortion, they believe that that is Christianity. Instead of saying, you know, that's a distorted image of what Christianity is all about. It's not authentic. His leadership earned him enemies as a result. Among the powerful, the overlords, the military, those in control. They petitioned Rome to remove him. But he remained. You might remember the movie back in the 70s, The Mission. I don't know if you've seen The Mission. You see a similar theme played out there. Those missionaries who are authentic in their mission and the repercussions it creates with those in positions of power. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend seeing the movie The Mission. It takes place in South America, in Paraguay. Well, Paraguay and Brazil. But he remained in Peru as Archbishop, and he was loved by the poor. He was supported by holy friends like St. Martin de Porres and St. Rose of Lima, two of whom he himself had confirmed. St. Turibius died in 1606. He was canonized in 1726. March 23rd, today, is the anniversary of his death. He died 417 years ago. I was talking to Kathy and Father Bill this morning, and I said, you know, the year 2026 is an important year for the parish, because in 2026, it will be 420 years since his death and the 300th year of his canonization. It could be a great year for celebration, the celebration of a great saint and the tattoo that you all carry, the spiritual tattoo of commitment and mission. And so what do we take away from this great saint? We could ask ourselves, how do we use our time? How can we teach others to use their time in a good way and not to squander the gift? One person can make a difference. And this is your spirit, your mission. To be preachers and teachers and healers. to those around you. Your flock might be your neighborhood, your block where you live, your family, the people you associate with on a daily basis. Those who have this spirit have compassion for the poor and for those who suffer. Show how authentic Christianity is for today. That is your mission. And that is what we are celebrating on this feast of a great saint.